So this video is going to be on the agents of evolutionary change, and the first agent is mutation, and mutation is a change in an organism's DNA, and these are the different types: point mutation, deletion, insertion, and frame shift. Okay, so the second agent of evolutionary change is gene flow, and that's the exchange of alleles between populations, also called migration. So what happens basically is that maybe this population has a certain uh, genetic variation or allele for it to be this color, brown, and then it travels to an individual travels to another population, and now this population has this allele mixed in, so there's genetic variation because of this. Okay, and the third agent of evolutionary change would be non-random mating, and it's the purposeful selection of mating based on the presence or absence of certain traits in a potential mating partner. And there's two different types, and the first is assertive mating, and that means mates are generally similar or genetically similar. And an example of this be inbreeding. The second is disassortive mating, and disassortive mating means that the mates are genetically different. And then this is a picture, an example of non-random mating. And the first is assortative mating, meaning that they're genetically similar. This assortative mating is they're two different, genetically different. Okay, so the fourth agent of evolutionary change is genetic drift in a small population, and this happens in either the founder effect or the bottleneck effect. That's what they're called. And the founder effect is when a few individuals from a population start a new population, the founders, and they have a different allele frequency than the original population. And this is shown in this picture of the bugs. You have in the original population there's yellow and red bugs, and then there's a bug that travels to an island and starts a new population. It becomes a founder, and now all these bugs on this new island are just red because they have the allele frequency of red. And the bottleneck effect is similar, but this happens when there's a catastrophic event, and this causes this bottleneck effect. A select number of individuals that will survive will reproduce that frequency. So in this example, you see the original population, and catastrophic event causes these white and blue alleles, and then the new population only have these white and blue alleles because they're the ones who survive this event. Okay, so the fifth agent of evolutionary change is natural selection. Natural selection is when the environment influences who passes on their DNA. And then for selection, there must be one, the phenotypic variability among individuals, meaning that not all of individuals can be the same, because then you can't select a certain type to go on to pass on their traits. And two, the phenotypic variability must have genetic basis, meaning it has to be genetic because they have to be passed on. They cannot be nutritional. And third, the variability reflected in number of offspring surviving reproduce, meaning that the variability selected is shown by how much offspring they reproduce. And the selection mechanisms are predator avoidance, accessing resources, and withstanding climate variability, artificial selection, meaning pesticides and stuff like that. Okay, we're going to go over the different selections, and there's directional selection, stabilizing selection, and disruptive selection. For directional selection, that's when one of the extremes is getting selected against. And an example would be for this one, the short tail lizard is getting selected against, so that means the long tail lizard is gonna rise, population is gonna rise. Okay, for stabilizing selection is when both extremes are getting selected against. For this one, for this tiger, the short tail and the long tail are getting selected against, and so then the medium tail is the best, and that's where the population is going to rise for the medium. And for disruptive selection, meaning that for the mean, that's going to be what's going to get selected against, and the extremes are where the population is going to rise.